All right, hey guys, Josh Beecraft here with another 2mm shift. My hair, I normally keep down the center, but it was doing this thing where it kind of like came over to the side, so I kept it. I don't know if it's good or not. It might look ridiculous, but I'm going to do a video on it anyways, and hopefully you guys are going to like it. So here's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about networking. This is how I've built most of the relationships and business that I have is through networking, right? We do some other advertising and whatnot as a digital agency, but networking is something that I'm pretty good at when I want to be, and when I don't want to be, I just don't do it, right? And there's a couple of tricks that I picked up along the way, and here's one I'm going to give you that's going to maybe feel a little counterintuitive, and you might scratch your head and go, why? But I'm going to tell you it works, and it works beautifully. And the core, so I'm not bearing the lead, is that you never need a business card again, right? Now, some of you that rely on business cards are going to have pushback for me on this, and you probably have some valid points. But hear me out for a second. When I quit using business cards, I quit worrying about so much. Do I got business cards with me? It's the only way I know how to hand these out and give to people. And then I had like, oh, if I forgot them, what do I do? And then I was always like, is the business card the right thing, right? I collect business cards all the time that people give me. I don't ever look at them again. Even if I'm interested in the person, like I'll just say, give me your number, right? So what this ended up evolving into is a different way of going about it. So when I meet people at networking events, at any events that I'm traveling around the world to, if I'm on a cruise, if I'm anywhere, and I meet somebody that I want to connect with again, what I do instead is they say, hey, do you got a business card? I say, no, I don't use them. And they always look at you weird because they expect everybody to have them, right? That weird look is actually to your advantage because they're scratching their head like, what am I missing? Why wouldn't you have a business card if you're a business guy, right? You say, listen, every time I get them from people, I always chuck them in a drawer, and or sometimes they don't even make it home, and I don't ever go back and look at them, and they go, you know what? I actually do the same thing. Like very rarely is somebody keeping all of these business cards in their little Rolodex to go back and go, who was that person that did the thing? Flip through. If you do that, it's totally fine. Like I'm not judging you for it at all. I just know most of the people I talk to don't actually do it. Business cards is one of those things that is like, it's been so ingrained in the business culture that people feel like they have to do it. Like it's like kind of a 101 thing. The funny thing is like the more sort of higher net worth people you get around, the less they care about business cards. And if they have one, it's literally just their name and phone number on it. Like it's not even trying to sell anything or position a company or anything. It's like a very like, okay, if I have to kind of thing. It's a very half-hearted effort because it's not that important to them. And you could say, well, they're wealthy. They don't need to do business anymore, so it's not that big a deal. It's actually different than that. They still love to do business. They still want to do massive amounts of business. They just want to do it with people who get down to business. And business cards are actually, believe it or not, like a weird friction to get down to business. Like think about all of the extra decisions you have to make to go find a business card, dig through, find the phone number, enter the phone number, make the call. I know that sounds pretty like wow, that's really lazy, Josh, right? Like you're complaining about having to do that. But when you're a busy professional and you have to make really important decisions on a day-to-day basis, the last thing you care about making your decisions on, and there's such a thing called a decision budget, and this is maybe a different 2mm shift episode that I'll do on decision budget, but the least amount of decisions you can make in a day, the more high performance you will be. That's the basic gist, right? Cutting out these extra steps may not seem like much in and of itself, but I promise you with what I'm about to tell you for doing the alternative to a business card, you're going to see the efficiency and you're also going to see the power to build a different relationship, okay? So what I want you to do instead of a business card is I want you to, you can do one of two things. You can either go get an app on your phone. I use one called Blink, B-L-I-N-Q, and you can set up your profile on there. It's got a QR code, and it'll instantly share your contact information with anybody. They just scan it with their camera. It'll pull it into their phone. So what I'll do is I'll give them that code. They'll scan it, and I say, text me your information. Immediately, they'll get my contact info and text me. And once I have that text, I have their number with their name, and I go into that thread and I take a selfie of both of us. I get us together and say, hey, let's grab a picture here. I grab that picture and then I send it to that text thread. So now what I have instead of a business card is we have a memory. We know we were together at an event. We know that we shared conversation and some moments together instead of it just being an exchange of a business card. Now, you might go back and call somebody with a business card and say, hey, I remember I met you at this event, so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And they'll go, okay, great. And have that connection again with that memory where if I text message them on this thread again, particularly after the event, and I say, hey, it was so great to meet you. Really excited about what we talked about. I'm going to follow up with you this week. We're keeping the energy alive from the event instead of letting it die with the next business card that gets handed out or shuffled around. So when you do this method, it catches people off guard because they expect you to have a business card. Then you do this other thing and you capture the moment in time. You capture the memory, and then you just continue messaging on that thread to keep the energy alive. Hey, I remember you said that you really liked this sports team. Funny, this just came across my Facebook feed. I thought you might like it, right? And you send them something of value to them that references the conversation for something outside of business. And I'm going to add on to this. When you're doing this communication and you're engaging this networking, you want to gauge how much connection you have with the person, right? And you want to make sure you do this at the right time. But people are going to start to reveal things about themselves. People are going to start to, in conversation, tell you little pieces of information. And it's going to be maybe a sports team they like or a school that they went to or something that their kids are doing, right? My kids play soccer and whatnot. Your job in those conversations is going to be to elicit that information. Make sure to note it appropriately, whether you can remember it or you create a separate file where you can write it down real quick. But what you want to do is follow back up with that information, right? Like, hey, the next time, hey, I'll tell you a story differently than this. So like when you find this information out, you might have other resources in your network that can be leveraged to build that new relationship. So I have a friend, this is kind of an extreme example, right? But I have a friend who happens to know a Major League Baseball player. Finds out a new person he wants to do business with, that his son is really into baseball, wants to go play, college level and whatnot. So he goes, hey, you said that your son's really into baseball and you're doing all this stuff. I happen to know so-and-so, and what I'd like to do, if you're okay with it, is set up a meet and greet. Would that, would your kid be excited about that? Boom. You're in. When you network with the intention of serving people, be interested in them instead of anything else. And I think I talked about this in another 2mm shift episode, but this all kind of goes together. When you're able to reference that stuff in that text message thread that was created with a picture as a moment in time for both of you to share and reference, you actually start to build relationship instantly. It's not waiting for a business card. It's not lost in the drawer until you're timely enough to think about. You actually just start building the relationship through that text thread, and if something comes up for business or anything else, great. If not, you touch base every once in a while and say, hey, just happen to be thinking about you. I hope you're doing well. Looking forward to the next time we connect. Maybe we can grab lunch. I'll be in town next week or something. Like whatever it is, just to build relationship. This is how I've built most of my network, is actually caring about and talking to people about what they care about, so that way they know that I'm a genuine person. I'm not trying to be a genuine person. I am a genuine person. But I have to show that to people, right? And you show that by being genuinely interested in them, and they will in turn be interested in you. You give them a business card, you lose that entire magic. I've done it over and over and over. Every time somebody asks me for a business card, this is what happens. I go, nope, I don't use them. And they look at me like it's weird. And I say, nope, we do it a little bit differently, because if we're worth talking to each other and we're doing business together, I'd rather build a relationship than hand you something that's a surrogate for that. Here, zap my phone. I'll put my number right in your phone, and then text message me your name and information. And once we get that, we're going to do this selfie thing. We'll capture this moment in time so we'll both remember it. And I'll follow up with you here at the end of the event. Sound good? Oh, wow. And the whole point here is that you're doing things differently, and you're doing it the way that real friends would do things, right? Friends don't hand each other business cards. They just text each other. People don't think in terms of psychology to think about what happens the most. We think like so many people are caught in this idea of business as being this professional environment. It's only professional in that you're respectful in your communication. Anything else that we put in the classification of professional is putting on a mask, right? There's nothing wrong with wearing a suit or dressing nice, but trust me, if you come in and talk to me and you're wearing a suit and you're dressed nice, I know that you put on your best face. I know that you're showing me your best self. You're not showing me exactly who you are. You're only showing me what you want me to see. And we all do that, right? And there's no judgment there. Like, even if I'm dressed like I'm dressed right now, and we're at an event, you're probably going to feel like Josh is showing me his best self. And I probably will be, but I won't have the uniform that screams it out loud, right? And then you flip out the business calendar and the business card, and you got your brochures handy. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It works for a lot of people, and there's nothing inherently wrong with it. I just happen to find this to be a much better way to just be humans together instead of trying to be, you're a potential customer and I'm trying to get business, so that's why we're talking. Instead, I want to talk to people as though they're humans, and business can be secondary. Another way to say this, and I say this all the time, I always prioritize relationship over transaction, because relationships lead to transactions, and they lead to many more transactions than just prioritizing a transaction will. Trust me, it will compound over time. Do this with people, invest in them at a personal level, and they'll invest in you. You'll never have to fight for another dollar in your life once you get this built right. So that's the 2mm shift. Stop giving out business cards. Do it this other way, and I promise it will work for you just like it's worked for me and so many of my other friends that do the same thing. We'll talk to you soon.